So since I'm tergiversating all over the place with my agenda as usual, we're going to introduce our guests today. And we can start at the end with Matt.
Which line? This one.
Just say who you are, why you're here, what you do.
My name's Matt Milgram. I work at NT Concepts over on Gallows Road with Ed Terinsky, who's here. I got here because my former boss, Adam, knows Kelly and put me in touch with Kelly, and so I got here. But I've known about Toastmasters for years, so I've always been interested and always been curious and always wanted to be a part of this. So I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome.
I work at Car Workplaces over at Tyson's Boulevard, and I came here because Annie told me about it. And
Told you to come?
No, she actually didn't tell me. I actually approached her and said I wanted to come.
Cool.
So,
I'm Autumn. I also work at Tyson's, or this Tyson's location for Car. I heard about Toastmasters in college and was interested. It just didn't really fit into my schedule. So Annie kind of struck the idea with us, and here we are.
My name is Daniela Jageman. I work at the 1750 Tyson Boulevard location of Car Workplaces. And yeah, Andy's really been kind of mentoring us to really get out there and get used to talking in front of people and things of that sort. So she discussed coming to the last month's, and we were kind of busy at the center, so this month worked out a little bit easier for us.
Great.
We have one more arrival. Mr. Terinsky, there's nothing like making a grand entrance.
Start at 8:30, right?
You're right. Are you ready to be the evaluator?
Sure, I'm ready for anything. Sort of.
You have paper?
Yeah.
All right, next up on the agenda,
We give that to Bill.
I'm going to
That's what was
introduce
evaluating for Bill.
Bill Artis. He's going to be speaking on Project 4, which is Speaking to Inform. Bill Artis is an advanced communicator, bronze Toastmaster today. He will speak today from the Speaking to Inform manual, part of the Advanced Communication series. His speech is from Project number 4, a fact-finding report. The timing is 7 to 9 minutes. Mr. Timer, and there'll be a 2-minute period for questions and or comments after the speech. You'll see an evaluation sheet for you to write your evaluation of his speech and give it to Bill. Bill's speech is titled Spiritualocity, to Occupy the Planet. Please welcome to the lectern, Bill Artis. Oh, and spiritualocity is not a real word, he made it up. So, I'm not that stupid.
It's like that word.
You don't have to tell the truth in these meetings either.
Morning, ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters. Morning. And our very welcome guests. We are being reorganized by forces unimaginable 25 years ago. The global economy seems to be teetering on the brink regularly, and at the same time we are morphing into a more spiritually based world. As you see, and as I hope you'll see after I speak, these two events are deeply connected. In the early 1960s, optimism was at a high peak. Profoundly humanistic goals seemed very possible. And then we lost our visionaries, one by one. The Kennedys, Dr. King, Malcolm X, John Lennon, all fell to the gun. But we humans are forever hopeful, and in January of this year, protests in the Middle East lit up Arab Spring and spread like wildfire across the world. And look what's happened since then. Egypt is having its first public popular vote for leadership, and they plan to draft their constitution shortly. The Arab League, 22 Middle Eastern countries, will impose sanctions on Syria, one of its own members, with the slaughter of 4,000 political dissidents. And as for Occupy Wall Street, well, the rabble is really aroused and is protesting growing inequities which seem to exist everywhere. Meanwhile, the web rambles around the world like a tipsy host at a DC garden party, schmoozing, networking, connecting everybody. Hi, Becky, love you, mean it. Hi. We're all linked in by the web. It's a daisy chain of folks holding hands, singing Kumbaya around the world. But what we are not yet is a family. True families care for one another. They don't kill one another. They don't hurt one another knowingly. They support one another. Taken together, all these collective entities, the energies, are driving us toward a sense of universal familyness. Muslim and Jew, Baptist and Catholic, agnostic and atheist, Republican and, well, not so much. Layered on top of these events is a phenomenon more complex and more immediate. Digitally driven economic compression. That's nearly as bad as, sure, give us a rate. DDEC, I call it DDEC for short. Digitally driven economic compression converts routine tasks into formal, closely routinized entities, and that maximizes cost efficiency. It's a rather clumsy explanation, but the tasks then become automated and performed by trained employees, but often for Starbucks wages. All global economies are caught up in the downdraft of DDEC, and also by the fact that we are all occupants, even if we're not occupiers marching and carrying signs. That old economic model, which is accumulate as much money as you can and don't pay taxes at all if you can, that model is really broken. It worked for as long as our economy was expanding. But DDEC, the effect of DDEC is to gouge a hole in the middle of the labor force, and it's causing economic compression. Washington Post recently had an article rather by a writer who wrote that Apple Computer built a $1 billion data center in Maiden, North Carolina. Thousands of servers across hundreds of acres to carry Gmail, iTunes, and other web traffic. That server farm should create a boom in Northern Carolina, right? How many full-time jobs do you suppose are created by that gigantic server farm? This is the audience participation part. How many do you think? One from Melbourne? Five?
What was the question? How many server farms?
How many full-time employees will be hired to manage that server farm?
How many?
How many full-timers will
How
be
big
needed
is it?
to run it? The $1 billion entity.
Probably two.
Two. That's interesting. People guessed very low. The reality is about 50 people, but that's all. There were $1 billion worth of server farm there. Digital compression on the march. Have you noticed, this is my problem, have you noticed how flimsy cleanaces are now? They're practically transparent. I think the time will come when you say, have a cold? Here, have a tissue. Digital compression again. These sorts of reductions are universal. But how shall we care for people in a DDEC economy which is sucking up jobs like a Dyson vacuum cleaner? Fine-tuning the old model won't work. Congress, Wall Street, and the now infamous 1%ers are heavily invested in that model, as in fact we all are. We're accustomed to it. It's like a suit of clothes, and we think that's the way things should be. And nobody wants to risk their incomes, their 401ks, no one. Here's another factor that nobody's talking about now that I know of. DDEC's goal line of this compression is transparency. And by that, by transparency, I mean that over time, everything is flowing toward becoming part of the public record, into a data bank, or onto television, or on the web, or in print media. You can feel that, probably. That's an irreversible trend. It's as though we are all Kardashians with an insane need to be out there with everything we have. So, as I said at the top, we are being reorganized. I know the phrase sounds goofy. It's like the voices. Oh, the voices are telling me things. But DDEC was foreshadowed by Stanley Kubrick's character Hal, the computer guidance system in 2001: A Space Odyssey. Remember Hal? I'm sorry, Dave, I can't do that. Creepy, very creepy. Hal wanted to kill the crew so he could control the spacecraft. What we need to do, I think, is anticipate what's happening with Hal, that is DDEC, anticipate the trajectory and beat it to the finish line with an economic model appropriate to the times. Here's what a simpler model should look like, in my view. Financial services will have firm limits and stiff regulations. Ill-conceived financial products must be headed off at the pass. You've read the stories, I know. A bank lent money to a Mexican strawberry picker in Bakersfield, California, whose annual income was $14,000, so he could buy a house worth $750,000. Mortgages like these, called liar loans because they're doomed to be foreclosed, were rated AAA. Global economy, they sold them around the world, and it nearly bankrupted the global economy when those foreclosures began to hit. With one lie at a time, that's how it began. Of course you qualify, Mr. Jones. No problem, we'll get that loan for you. Number two, banks will become utilities as they used to be. Bankers shouldn't be risking our money, the depositors' money. Banking should be boring. The words investment banking are an oxymoron, like congressional cooperation. An economic system provides a structure for the money game we play daily. We need a new DDEC-aware model, one in which a Bernie Madoff could not have succeeded. Madoff represented an utter failure of regulation, fiscal regulation. So, ladies and gentlemen, we're about to determine how we shall care for one another economically on the planet. Caring for one another is fundamentally a spiritual act. This process, caring, we'll learn together, watching our progress through a large transparent window, a window into our true nature. We must be thoughtful, we must be deliberate. We'll take 2 minutes for any comments or feedback on what I've said, questions about it, anything at all. This, again, audience participation for anyone. Comments, thoughts? Yeah, Melvin.
Who is the leader of this new
I am at this point in time. I'm trying to interest the Occupy people in
Getting jobs.
working with me. Getting jobs, right. That's true. Jobs are, as you know, a major thing. Everybody in the room, I'm sure, knows people who have been laid off, not for unproductivity reasons, just cost efficiency. It's putting the hurt on an increasing number of people. So my goal, short-term and long-term, is to gather steam. I'm gradually building a more substantive idea around this concept. In effect, I want to create a different model for the economy that works for everybody.
So you won't be standing for the next election?
I will not. That's
You'll
true.
wait 4 more years?
At least 4 more years. Any more questions or comments? Don't all speak at once. I thank you all. I'll return control of the meeting to our Toastmaster, Kelly Eddington. Thank you.
Now for my favorite part of Toastmasters, it's table topics. So we're going to have our table topics master is Judy Freeman. She's going to come up here and probably give us something interesting and fun, maybe something we'll all laugh at each other. But you speak for 1 to 2